Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. I have two giant boxes of plants on the back of a truck here. Had to meet an 18-wheeler somewhere down the road and get these off into the truck because he didn't want to come down our little residential road. Lots of plants from the Southern Living Plant Collection. At least one encore azalea in here, and then one of the newest one, the variegated variety, and also some better boxwood I know are coming out of here, and really excited because next year we'll finally see better boxwood in the stores. We actually have all the varieties planted in this landscape and just haven't spent any time talking about them because there wasn't a whole lot of use in it because they just weren't available yet. But I think this next spring there'll be availability, and then by fall there'll be a heck of a lot of availability for better boxwood. But just jump in and take a look what we have in these boxes. Some of this is going to go to projects here in this garden, and some of it's going to projects in other gardens as well. So there's definitely not room out here for everything that's in these that's in the boxes up here. But we'll talk through them as we go. I'll tell you what, I'll just take this into this box off here, just like that. I really like the plants shipped this way. They're upright, they're on a pallet. You don't have to worry about them flipping over. This is the way they frequently ship me things. Sunshine ligustrum. You guys are all familiar with this plant, and boy, are there a lot of them out in the world. Sterile cultivar of privet. So, you know, regular Chinese privet has been pretty invasive, but this one is not, and it looks like that year round. This is a newer threadleaf cypress. This one's called Paul's Gold, and this one was selected because it's supposed to have more heat tolerance. So the folks in the South, and you know, people in the North, it doesn't really matter, you know, but down in the South, we get some bleaching on them in the heat of the summer. This one's supposed to be resistant to that, just overall more heat tolerant for the South. That's Paul's Gold threadleaf cypress. There is an emerald snow Loropetalum. It's actually got some flowers on it, which is not surprising because we just constantly have flowers on ours. Not much to look at right this minute, but there was a flower here very recently on it. This is a green foliage dwarf Loropetalum that has white flowers. And I've talked about being in this business long enough to remember when the only Loropetalum we had were green, and they got 25 feet tall in like a weekend, it felt like. And you had to prune them all the time, and they had white flowers. And then slowly we've progressed to have other, you know, purple cultivars like Purple Daydream right here. Purple Daydream's a dwarf, and you can see I love this plant. The backs of the leaf, you see the two-tone coloration on this plant. The back of the leaf has kind of a pinkish hue to it. The top of the leaf is that solid, really dark purple, almost black. And then this one gets an almost red flower on it. Very, very dark pink, as opposed to just kind of a brighter pink that other Loropetalum have, and it just really contrasts beautifully on that plant. Here's a gardenia that I don't have in this garden, Jubilation. It's one of the most popular gardenias. It's heat tolerant, repeat blooming, has double flowers. The Southern Living Plant Collection gardenias we do have out here, we have Scent Amazing, and we have Diamond Spire, which is the upright narrow one. It also has single flowers. Both of those repeat bloom as well. But Jubilation, really compact habit, more traditional double flowers on it, and grows as a little round 3 to 4 foot ball, really, with zero maintenance on it, pretty much. Here's a Mojo Pittosporum. It's actually in a Sunset Western, in a Sunset Plant Collection container. Same company has the Sunset Plant Collection. I did a video recently about the Sunset Plant Collection. Sunset Plant Collection and the Southern Living Plant Collection are owned by the same company. Some of the plants overlap and some of them don't. Some of the plants in the Sunset Collection are definitely Western plants, need dry, low humidity. And some of the plants in the Southern Living Plant Collection are definitely like humidity and regular rainfall and that kind of thing. And then some of them overlap and work in both. This Pittosporum is definitely one of those things that can become extremely drought tolerant in the ground over time. Oh, jump down here. There is I don't know what camellia this is. I do not remember. This is an October Magic Ruby. This is a dwarf Camellia sasanqua. It has red flowers on it. I've shown it many times on the channel. Really love that plant. It was the first plant we planted on this garden. And it's just a perfect 3 foot tall and 3.5 feet wide, and it's in bloom back there right now. Okay, there is a red sky holly here. This is a sky pencil holly that was, I put up a video maybe a week and a half ago or so on this. This is going to go on a project as well, but all the new growth on this one is red. That's why it's being called red sky. Upright narrow habit, just like any other sky pencil. But it also has some other breeding in it, and that's the reason we went down and talked to Dr. Reuter about this plant, because there are some other Ilex crenata disease-related issues that he's been breeding for as well. And so, you know, we do lose a lot of sky pencils in the nursery setting and in the ground for various reasons. And so he's working on those as well. And so what may look like just a regular sky pencil holly has a lot of other things going on with it. Plus it has red new growth. So that's going on a project here. We have a variegated oleander. We'll talk a little more about this one coming up. Excited to have this one out here. It'll probably need a little protection for us a few nights during each winter. You know, we'll see how that goes. May leave it in a container for this winter and then make sure it's pretty established in the ground before I plant it. I got another It's a Breeze red rose, and I'm going to add another one to the front garden out here. This thing just blooms and blooms and blooms. The one in the back garden is in a little too much shade. It was in a little more sun when we first planted it. Some other things have grown up around it. The trees on the back line have gotten a little bit bigger, and it's a little bit thin. The first year it was very full and just bloomed like crazy. So I wanted to get one out here in the front garden and just make a comparison between the two of them. Okay, this is a Chef's Choice rosemary, low growing, mounding rosemary. This will be part of some other project. We have one in the back garden here, 3.5 years in the ground. It's 2.5 feet tall, a little wider than that, probably approaching 4 feet. I'm going to add a little control to it in the late winter. These bloom in the wintertime here, so there'll be blue flowers on ours. It's in that, you know, it's in that salvia family, similar flower to any other salvia. But again, it happens in the kind of the worst of the winter. You'll see these rosemary here in bloom. And this is a great culinary rosemary. Some of the other dwarf rosemaries aren't all that tasty really, but this one is. So it was bred for both being a great ornamental and also being a great culinary rosemary. I think that's enough to go ahead and fill the cart one time. We'll get back out here in a second and get back to pulling things off of here. This cart is actually fairly interesting. It's a cart I've been pushing since I was a teenager. It was a garden center that I worked for in North Raleigh. Actually, Steph worked there as well. And we both have spent some time pushing this cart as young people a long, long time ago. When the garden center closed down, I bought a bunch of stuff that they had that was left over, things for my nursery, cinder blocks and all kinds of things. But I bought 2 of these carts, and I've managed to, you know, salvage off of one onto the other and keep it working well. But this is at least a 37-year-old cart at this point. It's got to be at least. It's built like an absolute tank. I saw one at another nursery recently. It was, you know, they had theirs for 30 or 40 years as well. So back to plants in just a minute. Another Mahonia that I really like is this Beijing Beauty. We have one in the back garden. It's about 3 feet tall and about 4 feet wide, and it blooms like crazy. It's probably bloomed more months than it's not. I mean, I would say it blooms 7 out of 12 months, something like that. And this one has, you know, just finished a cycle of flowers down in Alabama where it was shipped from. This one, we don't have a regular green Oakland holly, and this one is literally perfect. It's flowering right now, so it must have gotten cold and then got a little bit of warm weather on it. This is a self-fruiting, upright, narrow holly. Really, really easy, and it kind of grows like this on its own. A lot of the other upright, narrow hollies that you see are sheared a lot more than this. So like Nellie Stevens has to be sheared a lot to keep it this narrow, and Oakland just doesn't need that. We have 2 golden Oaklands here, and they haven't been sheared ever, and they're super tall and super narrow. So I do like this one because I think everybody's got that kind of space that they need something that's that narrow. So that's Oakland holly. Looks prickly. That's another thing in this plant breeding now is that, you know, look at this. This thing that looks kind of wicked, but it's nothing like other prickly hollies. I mean, it could get you if you stuck your hand in there, you know, the wrong way, maybe. But for the most part, no problem. This one, I'm really excited about. I've wanted to get this plant back at this place. This one does not look like anything, but it will. This is a clematis. Clematis, I always say that just to make sure that if, however you say it, I've said it correctly, right? This one's called Taiga, T-I-A-G-O, or G-A, T-I-A-G-A. What a beautiful flower this one has. I had this one at the old house. There hasn't been a whole lot of availability on it, so I'm hoping they're trying to build numbers again on this plant because it is a fantastic clematis. It's so showy. It's almost like an alien flower on this plant. So this one's definitely staying here as part of this project. Let's see. This is one of the Southgate rhododendrons. And you know, I want to put a second one back there. This one's Southgate Breeze. I don't remember which one we have in the back, but you can see it's budded up. The thing that makes this evergreen, this rhododendron special, it was again bred for being heat tolerant in the Southeast, and this is not, you know, this one's been in this container for a little while. I just wanted to get one up here because I know they're trying to build numbers back up on these, so there'll be some availability at some point on these. I actually saw these at the Hammond Research Station in South Louisiana in full bloom, looking absolutely fantastic. I mean, that's as far south as you could possibly go, you know, and to be in the area of the Southeast, it still gets regular rainfall and that kind of thing. And it's hot. I mean, it's really hot in Hammond, Louisiana. And I've spent a good amount of time there. And these were holding up fantastic in that garden. So just amazed by these. We have one on the back line back here. Took a little while to get it established because there's a lot of root competition back there. It was something that I had to learn about this garden. You know, that can happen. You know, you move into a place and you start gardening and you go, oh, this is so easy. And then you find a spot that's not easy. So I know now the spot that this will go is back there with that one. And I'll have to water it a little more initially to make sure it gets rooted in before, you know, while it's competing with the tree. This is Autumn Moonstruck. This is the variegated Encore Azalea. This is one of Buddy Lee's new inventions. I did a video over a year ago with him about this plant. Maybe it was a year ago up in Baltimore on this variegated Encore. This is, I've grown a lot of variegated, azaleas in my life, and they have a tendency to revert, meaning they'll throw out green foliage here and there. So this thing really had to be looked at a lot of years in order to make sure that it wasn't going to be something you send out into the world and it's going to be super interesting variegated foliage for like 3 years and it was going to be green. So it's been looked at a long time. It's just a really stable variegation. It's consistent all the way around the plant. Great flowers. They start out kind of green and then they get whiter and whiter and whiter the longer they stay on it. And here we are in December and it's flowering because down there, their fall's a little later than ours is, where this came from. For me, this would have bloomed in the fall back in early October. Down there, more like early November into early December, and then it'll bloom again in the spring as well. But I did not have one of these Autumn Moonstruck. And then this is a new osmanthus called Misty River. I think is going to be the name for this one. It actually has a few flowers on it. I hadn't seen it flower until just then. So I was concerned maybe there'd be a few less flowers on a variegated osmanthus, but right there is the answer to that. It's flowering right now. Flowering on several stems, actually, I can see. Pink new growth, bright variegated foliage, settles into kind of a slightly darker variegation. Fast growing upright plant once it gets some roots up under it. That one's definitely staying here in this garden. I gotta jump up here and get this other box opened up. Oh, all right. Copper top sweet viburnum. Very fast growing sweet viburnum. And now that we've been rezoned to 8A, I can definitely use it here in this garden. This is a plant that is definitely 8 to 10. And I probably will get the occasional winter that could hurt this a little bit here in Raleigh. So I won't put it out in a place that's getting full wind, across it. But I do have a spot back there that I really need a super fast growing evergreen. And this sweet viburnum is going to be a perfect choice for that. Coppertop's a great plant. I planted them three of them at the old house, and boy, in root competition, their area with root competition. And they took off. I mean, they absolutely took off. So I think this is the plant that's going to help solve a problem I have in the back garden for sure. This is Burning Love Lakothawee. Maybe, perhaps one of our top five favorite plants in the garden. Always doing something. It has flower buds set on it now, the one we have in the garden. You'll get white little dangling blueberry-like flowers in the spring. And then after that, all the new growth is this kind of bronze color. And then it'll turn pretty green. And then once you get some cool temperatures on it in the winter, it'll start picking up these hues, these kind of purple hues again. Really just kind of always doing something. Ours has been in the ground almost 2.5 or 3 years, and it's only this tall. It's not much taller than this one is right here. It's slightly wider. So it's in no hurry. It's just a perfect ornamental plant, really. Here's a soft caress Mahonia. There are a couple of these in the back garden. Our best one is actually in a container back there. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's just grown like wild. It's going to be part of this one's going to be part of another project we're working on. We have there's Romeo and Juliet Clara. I've shown Juliet a bunch of times in the back garden. This one's called Romeo, slightly different variegation. Juliet has a little bit of pink mixed in, also. This one has more of a kind of a bold yellow or chartreuse edge on the leaf. Both of them will get pretty good size over time. Variegated plants tend to grow a little bit slower, but this is a great option as a screening plant, or if you've got a tall window where you can put something that's evergreen, keeps its leaves in the winter. Just a kind of a trouble-free plant that looks like that, really kind of super easy. There are the Abelia. We have Radiance Abelia and we have Miss Lemon Abelia. There's a couple of other really great, super compact Abelia out there as well. They're now in the Suntastic series, so that Radiance is now, I think, Suntastic Radiance, and this is Suntastic Peach. The leaves will, as we get a little bit of cool weather on it, they haven't had much down there yet, but up here we'll see a little bit of pink develop in these leaves. Stays incredibly compact. You can see the leaves are much smaller than other Abelias. It's going to stay much smaller, super compact, and then has flowers most of the summer. Pollinators absolutely love these. And then this one is Suntastic Pink. And you can see the difference in the variegation. So you don't think, I'm showing dwarf Abelia, variegated Abelia on the channel, and you don't think there's probably a whole lot of difference between them. But when you see them up close, they're very different. The growth habit's very similar though. These are only going to get 2.5 feet tall, something like that, and maybe 3 to 4 feet in width over several years. And then again, they bloom literally all summer long, which is fantastic. This is a new Indian hawthorn that I've just started talking about over the last few months because it's finally going to have some availability. A great low mounding Indian hawthorn. One of the issues, the main issue with Indian hawthorns is a lot of them, it's in the rose family, and a lot of rose family things get leaf spot issues. And the same Indian hawthorns have been produced for a long time, and over time they developed some leaf spot issues. And through some selective breeding, we've got some really great new ones coming out, and this is going to be in a series of dwarf Indian hawthorns, and I'll talk more about them coming up over the next year or so. I'm kind of excited to see Indian hawthorns kind of re-emerge as great landscape plants, because they were always great ornamental landscape plants. But then if people have constant problems on them, they're there's no use for them. So they're back. Everillo carex, because you can never have enough Everillo carex. Just a great chartreuse grass-like plant. This one's actually going on a landscape project. Lemon lime nandina. These get better and better in the ground over time. There are 3 in a garden around the corner from us, and as they mature, they just get more and more of the chartreuse color in the newer growth, and they have that darker green color in the bottom. Those are probably 8 or 10 years old, and they're 3.5 feet tall and not that wide, 2.5 feet wide or something like that. These don't flower, so they don't produce seeds, so they're not invasive. Just a great ornamental plant. All the things that you would like about an andina, and then excluding the invasive part of it. So what a great ornamental plant lemon lime nandina is. This is a Philadelphus. This is a species from the Northwest United States, and through some breeding, it has a double flower. So it is a double flower, super, super fragrant. This thing blooms and blooms and blooms and blooms, where we see most Philadelphus will bloom out as soon as first few warm days in the spring. Honestly, not a great plant if you were growing these for retail, because by the time anyone came to your retail store, just like forsythia and a lot of other things, they'd already bloomed out. You know, same thing with camellias and a lot of stuff that just, it wasn't doing its thing when you had customers. And the things that would sell were the things that were doing something when you did have customers. But this plant just blooms and blooms and blooms. We had it blooming in December last year, right before the December freeze. We have gotten enough cold on it this year that it's stopped it from blooming, but this is just a great ornamental plant. Let's see, on its way to sleep, of course. Hasn't gone quite to sleep down there. This is Touch of Gold Holly, and this is a really nice one. This one was sheared recently, and you can see after it gets sheared how all that gold foliage, really shows off anytime after a pruning. It's always gold. It always has that gold up in the top, but you can shear this thing and really, get a really intense pop of color on it. It's a Japanese holly, a gold version of a Hugendorn holly, which is a type of Japanese holly. They're not prickly in any way. Super, super compact. I've shown it on the channel a bunch of times. It's just, such an easy plant, really. And you can see how perfect that plant is. This is an arborvitae called Forever Goldie, and you can see why. When it gets a little bit of chill on it, a little bit of cool weather on it, you'll get a little bit of this kind of burgundy coloration showing up in it. And then anytime in the spring, summer, fall, it's just got all the new growth is gold on it. So anytime it's actively growing. Nice thing about these is they grow spring and fall. They tend to slow down a little bit during the summertime, but in the spring and in the fall is when they're going to be the most showy. It's going to get some size on it over time, but it's going to be a great screening plant on the edge of your property. Great corner foundation plant. Really easy. One in the landscape. Great container plant. These are cold hardy to like zone 4. So, perfect container plant. Then I got 6 boxwoods, the new better boxwoods. Again, we have all the varieties in the ground here, and I'll start showing them off this spring. Nice thing about the better boxwood, well, several things. They're blight resistant. This is what they were bred for. So these were bred to be the first ever kind of scientifically proven blight resistant boxwoods. So hopefully eliminating boxwood blight and then giving you back all the things you love about boxwoods, right? They're green, they're easy, the deer don't eat them. All the things that boxwoods are great for. They're drought tolerant, they're tolerant of higher pH soils, they're tolerant of just a ton of things that boxwoods give us in the landscape, and they've kind of been taken away from us a little bit because people are nervous about boxwood blight. There's 4 different ones so far, and they're in different shapes and sizes, and we'll go through those this spring. But they're little compact balls like this, and then upright narrow one, and then more of a traditional looking round boxwood kind of a look to it. Of course, they're boxwoods. You can do anything you want to them, but if you pick the right one for the right space, you shouldn't have to do hardly anything on these. And again, it's been, 2 to 3 years in the making. Boxwoods are not the fastest growing things in the world, so it's taking a while to build up big numbers on them that people are going to be purchasing these in, because these are really, really, really going to be popular. So I think in spring you'll see some of them at retail, and then by fall, lots and lots more. So there you go, boy. That's a good haul of plants, I think, that they sent me. These will be used on various projects here, maybe containers. This foundation project up here, we'll see a couple of these things added. It looks like one of everything, but we actually have a couple maybe of these things as well that will combine together into groups of 3, that kind of thing. So what you're seeing is partly us just figuring out, numbers for this foundation project and other projects we have going on here. Thanks for watching.